Is approaching a girl in public an underrated way of meeting potential partners?
Well, in the past, in my generation when we came up, that was pretty much the only way you could go about it. I mean, old school, I think when not online or dating profiles, typically you have people and tick out ads in the newspaper for classified saying this person's looking or seeking whatever. And then when the internet came along, I think it was, if I remember right, it was AOL. America Online had this Love Online, I think it was, and so they had chat rooms, and you could chat back and forth. And one of my old high school buddies used to just sit, like he would work all day. He sold houses. He did well. We both were doing well. We were in real estate. We're like late 20s, and he would sit on there and they used to charge you by the minute to access, and so he was getting $800 and $900 bills for being online in the chat rooms. But he was meeting girls. There was usually about one or two a week that would show up from just the countless hours. And he had a routine down, and typically he would be chatting with, because he didn't want to drive anywhere or go on dates or anything. And so he would start talking about skinny dipping and daring them to come over and skinny dip. And then he would tell them to bring a 6 pack of beer. And so they literally, after, sometimes it would take a few days, sometimes it would take a few weeks, but the girl would be coming over. They'd go in the pool, have a beer or two, start having sex in the pool. Then it would move into, because we had a 2-2, it would move into his bedroom. And of course, I would hear it. He'd be keeping me up at night. But it was amazing watching him. He would just banging away. And it was just like, over the course of the year or two that we lived together, it was like, wow, that was pretty impressive. That was a lot of women came through, a lot of one-nighters. And then he got serious with this woman who was actually older, had kids from another relationship, and quite frankly, she was very attractive compared to, because he at one point was a male model when we were younger, and he always dated really beautiful women. Almost every one of these girls he met online was younger and really pretty, and then he ends up getting serious. I think eventually he married her. They were together for 8 or 10 years, got divorced. But point being is that was, and then you had like Match.com came out, and then that was, I think, early 2000s was the Match.com, and I think Match.com ended up buying like AOL's dating type thing. And then eventually here we are 20 years later. You got Bumble and Hinge and all these other dating apps. And so, but before AOL and the chat rooms in the late 90s, you could put an ad in the newspaper. You could go to like a matchmaking service and pay a few thousand. If had money, you could pay a few thousand a month. And basically the men and women that were joining those kinds of services, they had money and they were more successful. And so they wanted somebody a little more sophisticated than typically the person they'd meet out downtown. But there were other types of things like that. They would have, was it speed dating, where you go and you do that kind of stuff. Mm. And so nowadays, it's, especially with women, you guys got your Instagrams, and it's just constant. I mean, quite frankly, Instagram, I think, is the best dating app, because you could fix up cars for a living and post about it, and people could see your life and what you're into and your enthusiasm, and a girl will come along and go, wow, he's kind of cute, and she's a gearhead because her dad was a gearhead. So was a little girl growing up. She was probably in the garage with daddy watching him fix up cars and probably helping him do that. And she'll slide into your DMs. So if you look at especially the younger Generation Z, the millennials, it's just everybody. I mean, even you go out, even going to a restaurant, it's like most people are on their devices. Even when they're sitting together, they're on their devices. They're not really interacting. And so obviously when women are polled, the number one most important attractive thing they find in men is always confidence. And so if you meet a guy and you talk to him for a while and he doesn't ask you out, but you can kind of tell he's into you, and then maybe a day or two later he slides into your DMs on Instagram. Confidence-wise, a confident guy is going to ask for the number or make a date right on the spot. The guy that lacks confidence is going to wait and work up his courage for a day or two and come up with the perfect, or what he thinks is the perfect message, and send you a DM through an Instagram or a Facebook or something like that, or your Snapchat, whatever it happens to be on. But perception wise, ladies typically prefer the confident guy. The guy goes for what he wants. And so if most of the dudes, because like I've seen a lot of women, especially younger women, complain that like they never get approached. And so for guys, they're just used to being online and they're on their devices or so much. It's like the people skills kind of get lost because you don't really interact with other people. When I lived down in South Beach, we would go out and we had our own private beach area. Then in front, you had where the regular people would come and pitch their tents or whatever. And we'd see a lot of people be down there at the beach. This always amazed me. It's like you'd have 10 or 12 people, especially the younger ones, and they're on their phones trying to take the perfect picture to show everybody on their social media what a great life they're having, even though they're at this beautiful beach and they're not really hanging out and socializing. They're either on their phones or trying to take pictures or post on social media instead of just enjoying each other's company. And so if you develop your personality, if you take a sincere, authentic interest in other people, I think for a lot of guys, especially the younger dudes, it's like they just haven't developed those skills because they're so used to being entertained and distracted on their devices.
Yeah, I think that's definitely now everybody is on the computer, or on the phone, or everybody has like every type of app, that's popular at the moment. And I know a lot of people, it's like you go out to dinner, is that when you go out and see couples, a lot of times they're both on their phones.
Yeah.
And it's really horrible, like really, really horrible. Like, how are you getting to know each other rather than what each other you're posting on Instagram?
Or they've already both checked out, but neither one of them
Right.
are miserable enough to leave or do anything about it.
Yeah, I think that's horrible. Even if it's not like something romantic, even with your group of friends, I always like it's very rude, very, very, very rude. It just shows that you're more interested in something else than sharing your interest in what other people are trying to get across to you.
Wouldn't you guys all prefer to have a guy approach you in person instead of sheepishly a couple days later
Yes.
messaging you with some maybe kind of weirdish kind of message?
It's more organic that way when you talk in person. Especially like when you meet them, like you just meet them out of nowhere, it's so much better.
Yeah, and then you can actually know, besides what they have on Instagram, you don't have to go through their stuff. Then they can tell you what they like to do and where they like to go and what their hobbies are, rather than you stalking them on Instagram.
You could also feel their vibes too in person.
Yeah,
like you'll know.
It's always better for things to happen like organically, and like whenever I've ever had like an organic like relationship, it's just been like the best. If it's always been,
as the saying goes, it happens
like
when you least
like,
expect it.
sliding in the DMs.
It's natural,
like,
not forced.
It's more like forced, and like the pressure's on like to have like a connection with someone when you meet up with them. And I don't know, it's just,
if guys can get good at approaching and start getting comfortable with that, because at the end of the day, even if you're meeting online, you're going to have to talk to her. And if you want to sleep with her, typically you're going to have to enjoy each other's company. You're going to actually want to like what she has to say, and vice versa. You're going to want to be with a girl who actually likes listening to what you have to say. And so to me, the downsides, obviously, with online dating is that the pictures could be old, or they could be pictures when they were fit and in shape, and now they've gained a lot of weight in the last 6 months or whatever, or you can't really see their body well, and then you see them in person, and it's like now you've invited this person to be there, and you feel obligated, like, okay, I got to at least drink one or have 1 or 2 glasses of wine or whatever, and not just like dip out. Some guys will look and go, oh my God, she doesn't look anything like I thought. Because they'll go to the hostess and say, I'm meeting so-and-so, and the hostess will point, and then the guy, he'll like go to the restroom, and then, then go out the back door or whatever. But most of the time you're there and you might not really click with them. Maybe you just talked for a couple of minutes on the phone or whatever. But when you meet in person, if it doesn't go well in person the first time, it's not easy to get along with, you just feel like you click, you're not gonna really have a pleasant date with them if you can't enjoy each other's company the moment you meet, and feels like it flows. There's no reason to go out on a date, and that's the thing you don't get with online. Especially if you're just doing audio, you don't maybe do any kind of FaceTime or anything like that. You can't read anybody's body language. But in person, you totally can pick up body language and all that stuff. And it's just because that's missing online if you're doing a video date. But even then, it's much better to be in person. And because I hear that a lot from younger women that they just almost never get approached, especially the pretty ones. Because guys are so timid and shy, they try to slide into the DMs. So that can set yourself apart because women will appreciate a guy who approaches them. So definitely, it can work. It definitely works in your favor. Well, the other thing with like we were talking about earlier, that it just happens when you least expect it. You could be doing online dating and doing real well, but none of those girls, you like really feel like you have a soul connection, like you really want to you could see yourself get serious with them. And then you go to a friend's Super Bowl party or whatever, or his cookout for the weekend, and his wife or his girlfriend is there with one of her smoking hot single girls from the office that she works with. And they introduce you, and turns out she's into the same things that you're into. She likes doing the same kind of activities. She has the goals, the values that you like, because like attracts like. And then you end up leaving the party together. And then next thing you know, 3 a.m., you're bumping uglies and waking up together and spending the whole weekend together because it's so easy and effortless. And then next thing you know, a few weeks later, you're pretty much kind of always together, and the connection is so much better and so much deeper. But the fact that you were dating, and even though it wasn't really going anywhere, you knew what you wanted. You weren't settling or getting stuck with something that was mediocre. You held out for better. You became better yourself. And that's for most people, that's kind of how it happens. It might be, dating a lot online, hooking up here and there, but no real deep connection, and then boom, you bump into some chick at the gym or the grocery store or at a friend's party or whatever, or at work. I mean, it happens all kinds of different ways. But you can definitely set yourself apart if you are comfortable approaching women in person, because a lot of guys are just too timid and shy to do that. And plus, the other thing is 74% of all Americans are either overweight or obese, and if you're fit and in shape, ladies will be glad, even if they're taken, they'll be glad that you came over and lit them up for the day.
You're like, thank God this fit guy came. Everybody else is...
Yeah.
Whoa. Finally, somebody good looking.